I was definitely very fortunate to get to New England at the time I did. They flew me to the combine to Indianapolis to interview. This is typical Patriots, by the way. Put me through a week-long gauntlet of interviews during the day, train station, which you're familiar with at night. So then I go back to Chapel Hill. It's crickets for 2 months waiting for the call because I thought I did a good job. End up getting a call from Nick Caserio on Friday. Hey, Brandon, want to offer you the job. Here's what it is. You want to take it? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Tell my parents, tell my girlfriend at the time. So fired up, thinking like maybe, after the draft or the summer, get moved up there, get settled. Nancy Meyer calls me the next day on Saturday, says, hey, Brandon, we want you to start on Monday.
Oh, gosh.
Do you want to fly or drive? Like, oh, my God. I guess I'll drive. I need my stuff. But point being, it happens fast, but it's through relationships, it's through connections, and then it's always putting your best foot forward, serving the people around you, your reputation matters, all those things.
The Field Talk podcast is presented by Rhoback. If you've ever seen me, you know that I'm probably supporting Rhoback. They're my gear, my favorites. The signature hoodies, but there is so much more head to toe. You've got hats, you've got quarter zips, you've got polos, long sleeve polos, t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, crew necks, joggers, shorts. I'm breathless from giving you all of the various products that Rhoback has, and even better, every time I go to the website, seemingly there is a new product. If you haven't yet visited Rhoback.com, that's RHOBACK.com, you can enter my name, Field, F-I-E-L-D, for 20% off your first order. It is the best fit, the best feel. I wear it every single day. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. What's it like traveling the country and looking for great prospects to help none other than Bill Belichick? Or now, Tom Brady? Well, there are very few people that are equipped to answer that question, but Brandon Yeargan is one of them. He's the current Raiders Director of College Scouting who landed in Las Vegas after a tenure in New England that included 3 Super Bowls in less than a decade. But how do you get into a position where you are helping your general manager decide between players like Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty from once being an area scout that went around some of the smaller schools in the country to find those hidden gems? For more on the journey of Brandon Yeargan, we bring him in to discuss his rise to where he is now with one of the most honored and traditioned franchises in the entire NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's great to be joined now by the Raiders Director of College Scouting, Brandon Yeargan. And Brandon, I'm wondering, you have a position right now that is very unique and something that I'm sure a lot of people aspire to one day be. You spend your Aprils in draft rooms and making selections like the most recent one of Ashton Genty, last year Brock Bowers. But when did your football journey begin? When did you have a sense that maybe one day you wanted to work in the world of football evaluation?
Yeah, for sure. Field, thanks for having me on. Glad to do this. I've always had the passion for football. Just growing up playing baseball, football in high school. I was probably a better baseball player if you ask my dad, but even some of my best memories are going to North Carolina football games with my dad as a kid. So I've always had that passion. I knew I wanted to play in college. That was always the goal for me. Working in football didn't really become a reality until probably college is when I started to realize that was a potential career. But I had a good career at Davidson. I actually got hurt my senior year going into college, which kind of pushed me to Davidson, funny enough. I had some bigger offers at the time, and Davidson was the best combination of academics and opportunity to play football. And then obviously it's close to home. Fast forward 6 years later, I'm in Foxborough, Massachusetts, not so close to home. But anyways, played 4 years at Davidson. My junior year there, I got hurt again too. And you don't realize how much you miss something until you're away from it. So being out that whole junior year made me realize like football has got to be part of my life, just moving forward. So that was when I kind of turn the page on what careers in football might look like. Fast forward, play my senior year. That spring, my senior year, I started to work with the Davidson coaches, studying high school players, watching recruiting tape. And that was kind of where I found my passion for evaluating, for recruiting, for scouting. And then it kind of grew from there. The year I graduated from Davidson was actually the lockout, so May 2011. So at that point, I knew what scouting was. I knew I wanted to do it, but I kind of had to pivot because everything was pretty frozen at that point. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So I got into grad school at Chapel Hill, volunteered in the recruiting office there with Marcus Berry, helped me get my first job. Um, I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm going somewhere with it. Uh, a week into my time at Chapel Hill, that staff got fired, which kind of created like an upward shift. Butch Davis to Everett Withers got a little more involved. That next year, Larry Fedora came in. I got to work as a graduate assistant with him in recruiting with the offense. And that was really when I really figured out what scouting was, what that looks like, because all the scouts were coming to Chapel Hill. Um, my college coaches helped put me in touch with Brian Smith. You probably know Smitty from New England.
Smitty. Oh, yeah.
And then Smitty put me in touch with the Patriots guys as they came through Chapel Hill. So through the back and forth with helping them with information on the players we had at Chapel Hill, picking their brain, that was kind of how I found my way to this.
You kind of did the anti-Belichick, North Carolina to New England, as opposed to New England down to Chapel Hill, which we can ask you about in just a little bit. But you mentioned 2011 is your graduating year for college. So if you go back to Davidson, whether it's your 15-year anniversary next year, or just in general, would you say that you draw a bigger or smaller crowd than Steph Curry when he returns home?
Great question. I don't think it's comparisons, probably apples and oranges. But so funny story about Steph. So I've known Steph since 2004. We went to high school together too. 2003. We went to high school together too. So I've
same
known
high
his
school.
family. Yeah, I've known his family for a long time. So it was my freshman year. So his little brother Seth was a year behind me, and Seth actually played football. Steph wasn't tough enough to play football, obviously. But it was my freshman year at Davidson. We went to the Elite Eight and made that run. It was unbelievable. So yeah, similar crowds. Yeah.
I know you get paid to evaluate football players and do it at a very, very high level, but did you have any sense back when Steph was probably draining like 90-foot threes in high schoschool that he had a chance to go on to play one day in the NBA?
I mean, do you want me to be honest?
Sure.
No, I didn't expect that. Because you've seen the pictures of him from Charlotte Christian back in the day. He was scrawny. Yeah. I don't know how much he weighed, like 150 pounds. But I will say his work ethic at that point was unbelievable. He would lift weights with the football players. He trained all off season. He was committed to it. He's always been super intelligent, super detailed, hardworking. He was more of like a passer in high school than a scorer. And his ball handling's always been excellent. But his shooting is just unreal right now. I mean, he's the best in the game.
You know, Mark Davis does own both the Raiders and the Las Vegas Aces. WNBA has kind of the opposite offseason. Maybe you could do some moonlighting over there with the WNBA to help the Aces. Not sure they need it with the run they have had over the past few years, but I can see the basketball analytical skills.
We can negotiate.
Yeah, totally. All right, so you end up at North Carolina, and I think that this point of your career is probably simultaneously exciting because you've kind of gotten in, but at the same time, the next step might be the one that's the hardest to accomplish. It's how do you get into the NFL? I remember when I was working in the league, and then even now, just people knowing that I spent some time in the league are always asking me, how on earth do I get hired into the NFL? I tell people usually it's probably a byproduct of good timing and good fortune. So what's your inflection point? How do you make the jump from North Carolina to the Patriots, at the time, the most prestigious NFL organization, maybe sports organization in the world? Not competing to be good, competing to win a Lombardi trophy every single year. This is one of the greatest jobs you could get. How do you find your way there?
Yeah, I was definitely very fortunate to get to New England at the time I did, and the run that we went on from that point on. How I got there, I really credit Smitty for helping me get my foot in the door. And it's really through relationships, Field. It's through the connections. Smitty helped introduce me to J-Rob, John Robinson, former GM of the Titans. Also, Bob Quinn, he came through Chapel Hill that year, former the GM of the Lions. And I went back and forth with those guys, kind of, like I said, helping them with getting to know our players at Chapel Hill, and then also expressing my interest in doing scouting. So being at a big school where there were a lot of players working and recruiting, I think definitely helped me get my foot in the door. And then you still had to go win the job too. I'll give you a quick story. Like I interviewed, they flew me to the combine to Indianapolis to interview, put me through like a week long. This is typical Patriots, by the way.
Yeah.
Put me through a week long gauntlet of interviews during the day, train station, which you're familiar with at night.
Oh yeah.
Doing the informal interviews, tracking down players, and then hanging out with the guys at nighttime too, and then turning it around, saving seats, weigh-ins, etc. So then I go back to Chapel Hill for 2 months, finish out spring ball. And I'm just like waiting. I didn't hear anything. It's crickets for 2 months, waiting for the call because I thought I did a good job. But New England, they don't let anything out of the building. So end up getting a call from Nick Caserio on Friday. Hey, Brandon, want to offer you the job. Here's what it is. You want to take it? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Tell my parents, tell my girlfriend at the time. So fired up, thinking like maybe after the draft or the summer, get moved up there, get settled. Nancy Meyer calls me the next day on Saturday, says, "Hey, Brandon, we want you to start on Monday.
Oh gosh.
Do you want to fly or drive?" Like, oh my God. I guess I'll drive. I need my stuff.
Yeah.
But point being, it happens fast, but it's through relationships, it's through connections, and then it's always putting your best foot forward, serving the people around you. Your reputation matters. All those things.
Double-barreled question here. Obviously, there were a lot of great people you worked with in New England, some people that ended up in Las Vegas, where you have been now since your time with the Patriots. But I'm sure a lot of people ask you about what it's like working with Bill Belichick or working for Bill Belichick. So what's it like? And then what might be some lessons that you learned under him that you carry with you today and imagine you probably will throughout the rest of your career?
Yeah, I'm super grateful to Bill. Just my foundation in football, scouting, player evaluation, team building all comes through Bill, through my time there. And he trusted me. He trusted me as a young scout to go do the Southwest area, which was my after I was 2 years as a scouting assistant. Then I did the Southwest area for 4 years. And he trusted me to go to Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, some heavy hitters. Um, and in terms of the lessons, I would say like being a great teammate is number one. Um, Always putting the team first. I think that's something that he echoes every year. Always putting the team first, having great attention to detail. One wrong, all wrong. He's Every detail is important to him. Every step of the process has to be right, and you got to be thorough. Um, those are probably the main things I would say. Like it does take a talent to evaluate talent too. Um, but Bill was great in terms of feedback through Bill directly, sometimes to us as a scouting department, but also through Nick Caserio and Monty Ford. They were outstanding with giving feedback because you can grow, you can develop, you can get better, but it takes those type of people to pour into you, and then also you to study where you might have missed too.
Hearing you rattle off some of the names that were there during your time in New England, it reminds me of like the AAA All-Star game for baseball, where it's like all these guys will eventually be heavy hitters in the MLB. They're just currently, they're currently in camp at Foxborough. So many people have gone on to a ton of success, including yourself. You in what 7 years, you win 3 rings with the Patriots. It seems like probably a lot of things are going well. So how do you end up in Las Vegas, and what allows you to kind of separate yourself? I know, and I've talked about this with people on the show before. I certainly remember this dynamic during my own time in the league, is that being a scout is also being a teammate at the same time. Every scout, every area scout, that at least the ones that I came across had aspirations to one day become a director of college scouting. Remember, maybe one day after that, become an assistant general manager or a general manager. So what do you think was some of the things that helped contribute to you getting on the radar of the Las Vegas Raiders and taking on the role that you have now?
Yeah, shoot, I wouldn't have guessed we won 3 Super Bowls, and I mean, I had no idea what I was signing up for at the time. The success we had is awesome. I mean, 7 years straight going to the AFC Championship, winning 3 out of the 4 Super Bowls we went to. So I'm super blessed and fortunate for that. Um, my relationship with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels was really the reason I went to Las Vegas in this role. But I think what got me ready for that role was really the people that poured into me. It was the John Robinsons, Monty Ford, Nick Caserio, James Lipford. Those were kind of my champions that really taught me what I needed to get prepared for this job. Um, and then what prepared me for the leadership role was kind of just leading the guys I was working with when I became a national scout. Working with Cam Williams, who's now with the Broncos, Tucker with the Patriots, Alex Brooks, teaching those guys, mentoring those guys. I took a lot of pride in that and helping them become the scouts they are today. So I tried to transfer those skills to what we're doing here in Las Vegas. And we're fortunate here. Like, there's been a lot of transition, but we've still got some really awesome people in the building. Our college scouting staff is outstanding. We have, if you don't mind, I'd love to name these guys. I have 6 area scouts: Matt Hand, Greg Ruvini, Calvin Branch, Ryan Gravel, um, John Hill. I think I got everybody. Matt Hand. We have 3 national scouts: Lenny McGill, Andy Dingler, Jonathan Stiegel. We have an outstanding group. A couple analytics guys that work with me too: Walt Kunal, JB, our administrator coordinator. Like, we have really good people here in this building. And then we've really supplemented really well with the people we've brought in. John Spytek, our new general manager, has been awesome to work with. Brian Stark, Brandon Hunt, Anthony Patch, some really good people here.
That reminded me of Spytek after the draft, who kind of opened the press conference with, as he described it, the lifeblood of an NFL organization is the scouts and the scouting staff. I think it's very cool when those in positions of influence like yourself give the shine to the people that don't get a whole lot of it, even though they are grinding year round. Let's talk about the Raiders. Iconic franchise. One of the most iconic in the league. All the history, all the passion. What's it like working for the Raiders? This might be the most loyal fan base because good, bad, somewhere in between, those fans care very, very deeply about their Raiders.
Yeah, that's 100% true. This fan base is awesome. The thing that's most fascinating to me about the Raiders is the history of the Raiders. It's outstanding. Just the barriers they've broken, the success they've had, the moves, the transition, how loyal the fan base has been to the team. It's outstanding. And then it's really Mark Davis and Al Davis, from the top down. Mark's awesome to work for. He treats us extremely well. From all the things you don't see or hear about, he's outstanding. And then this new ownership group that's come in has been outstanding additions too. But I mean, it was a no-brainer for us when it came to the Raiders, and the opportunity to live in Las Vegas, which is a pretty cool place to live and work. That was kind of icing on the cake for us.
So your role now, director of college scouting, someone like me has an idea of what that means. But if you were talking to somebody who had never heard that term before, generally speaking, what do you do for the Las Vegas Raiders?
Yep. So I organize, manage, direct everything related to the draft process. That's kind of the one word phrase to sum it up. What that means is working with those 6 area scouts, 3 national scouts in terms of their coverage, which that kind of siphons off to the character evaluation and the film evaluation. So it's managing them, their schedules, who they're getting information on, how we organize that information, how we interpret it, how we communicate it above to John Spytek, Pete Carroll, how they write evaluations, reports, who they're supposed to write, when it's due, when we meet on it. All that stuff is kind of funneled through me. And really what I'm doing on a daily basis really depends on the time of the year. The fall is a lot of film evaluation, reading reports, reading character information that comes in. The spring process just depends on the month between, all-star games, combine, pro days, 30 visits, etc. But the way I view my role is really I inform the decisions of our draft process. So I'm not the one who's picking the names off the wall that we're going to draft, but I'm making sure that I'm the source of information that knows all the different pieces that goes into that decision. So what do the scouts think? What do the coaches think? What's the character like? What's the medical like? What do the security people think? All those different pieces, I'm kind of the source of information that funnels to our general manager to make that decision.
Since you've been with the Raiders, there's been a lot of change, but you've remained in your position. When you start working for different general managers, and specifically during the draft process, because again, that's the most important 3 days on your specific calendar are the NFL draft. How much has your job changed or your approach had to change? Do you have to kind of shapeshift to fit their way, or has the way that you've gone about it and been able to coordinate your staff of scouts been consistent during these basically 3 different regimes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely credit our scouts for being flexible and adaptable, and they're the ones who probably feel it the most. The transition. Now, the end game is always the same. Draft good football players with high football character and intelligence. Like, that hasn't changed. which that's been consistent through the three general managers I've worked with, which we've been very fortunate to prioritize those things in terms of football character and intelligence. So that's made it easy. How we've gone about writing reports and grading and what you call this versus that, that has changed some. But the language is pretty universal in terms of finding what the role is for the player. What can he do for us more so than what doesn't he not do well? And then really they have to check the box of, is this a person we want in our ecosystem? Is this a person we want on our team? And if they don't pass that hurdle, they really don't get to the other part of the process, the true evaluation and stacking piece of it.
Yeah, I've heard you speak a lot in our time so far about that side of it, the personal, the character. Is there an example of a guy, whether it's with the Raiders now or the Patriots? And I'm not trying to give away house secrets about how you saw the player, but just you said to yourself, we feel good about the football skill set on the field, but you feel even better or at a very high level about the character, and that player has gone on to become this great success story, maybe just as much because of who he is as a person as much as how fast, big, strong he is on the football field.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of players from my time in New England too that would fulfill that. Matthew Slater, Julian Edelman. I mean, obviously, the list goes on and on. From my time with the Raiders, I would probably point to Brock Bowers. Now I know that's an easy one.
Maybe not though. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So obviously the tape evaluation of Brock was excellent. I mean, he was really productive, really fast, athletic, good after the catch, etc. The person of Brock, and he's not the most outgoing or vocal guy, but his football character is the top of the charts. His mental toughness, physical toughness, as much as we targeted him last year, he didn't miss any time. He was out there every day at practice. And even a lesson or a picture of what that looked like going back to his college career, he gets hurt. He has the high ankle deal, gets a surgery. Most guys would have shut it down with as much as was at stake for him. He comes back. He finishes the year. He plays. He rehabs because his priorities are right. He cares about the team. It's not about the individual success. It's about the team. So there's a lot of guys. I'm proud of all the guys we've picked over the last 3 years, but Brock's an easy example to talk about.
I remember when Brock came back last year. First of all, his return game, he had a ridiculous one-handed catch where he got clocked right after it. And I thought he actually looked faster somehow coming off of tightrope surgery, which I thought about maybe I should have that surgery to get back faster, but I'm not going to put my body through that peril at 38 years old. This year, I feel like he kind of went down that same well, right? Ashton Genty, who had this unbelievable season last year, unbelievable career at Boise State for that matter. But the character side, is there a time where you felt like during the pre-draft process, like if this guy finds his way to number 6, man, what a get that would be for us?
Yeah, we were hoping that without getting into the details, but I got to see Ashton at different points in the process. They actually played here in Las Vegas when they played UNLV during the regular season. So that was my first time getting to see him, but our scouts have been watching him for years. Matt Hand did Boise, Lenny McGill. So they've been talking about him for years. And obviously the productions, you can't miss the production over the last couple seasons. So we saw him then. We did a formal visit with him at the combine, brought him here for a 30 visit, and I would say he aced the test at every step. And he's one of those few guys that you really like, you can peel him back and really get to know him. He was just very comfortable in his own skin. He's confident, but not cocky. He's self-assured, and he's really genuine. He's a really easy guy to talk to. He's laid back, but he's focused. So I don't know if there was a specific step along the way, but I felt good about him throughout the process based on the information and the work our scouts did. And then that got confirmed when we met with him for the first time as a group.
And of course, an incredible player who had almost literally off the charts production these past few years at Boise State. The draft, so much of the attention, and I felt like especially this year, we funneled towards players that we believe will go in the first round. Also, obviously, very quarterback centric. But for you, in your experience, has there been more joy from a first round pick that you nail? Because oftentimes when you nail a first round pick, that can mean a longtime starter, maybe even a Pro Bowl or even an All Pro, or maybe a day 3 pick where the odds tell you just making the roster as like a 6th or 7th round pick is a good step one. Sticking around and being a key contributor is a massive feather in the cap of a scouting department. Does one bring you a little more joy than the other?
No, to be honest, because I want to nail all of them. I want all
Yeah.
of them to make the team, to have
Sure.
success, to have roles. And it's really not about me. I think it's about the scouts who, where it really shows up is the undrafted free agents. The undrafted free agents that make your team, that's a real you take a lot of pride in that because we put a lot of work in that piece, and that's really where we have the most control as scouts through the draft process is the undrafted free agents. So you take a lot of pride when those guys find a way to stick around and when they contribute to your team. And we've had at least two make the team every year since I've been here. And there's a couple guys in this undrafted class that we take a lot of pride in. But you know, you want all your picks to have success, and you pull for them like crazy, and you believe in them and you support them. But once they're here, you kind of turn them loose to the coaches, and you're just a cheerleader.
Speaking of the coaches, now working for a new head coach and Pete Carroll. Who's got more energy? Like, have you had to like increase your caffeine, like drink a bunch of Celsiuses since Pete arrived? What's it been like working with Pete, who forever young is defined by Pete Carroll?
Yeah, that's the truth. I heard that coming into it, but that's been as advertised. He's awesome. He's a breath of fresh air. He's the same guy every day. He's consistent. He's always up. He's laser focused on this season and this team. He's one of those people that uplifts you when you just interact with them. You know, sometimes you see those people and they just put a smile on your face and like you feel better after the conversation. He's one of those people. And I think he's invigorated this whole place. And I really like what he's building here. Um, what's important to him has been presented very clearly. It's competition, it's being a great teammate, putting the team first. So it's been really fun for the last however many 5 months, and it was cool to see it reflected on the grass over the last month with OTAs. So I'm super excited about this season.
So you also, I don't know if you're the only person, but you're definitely on the short list of people that have worked alongside Tom Brady when he was the quarterback, and now I guess work for him as one of the minority owners of the franchise. What's Tom Brady, the owner, like?
Yeah, Tom's great. Uh, Tom has his opinions and he does the work, which is cool. But when he speaks, you listen. And I think the relationship with him and John Spytek is really strong. I think they have great alignment and see things very similar. But even though I've known Tom for whatever 13 years or so, you still kind of like, oh, there's Tom when he walks through the door. He just has that presence to him. So when he speaks, when he has an opinion, you definitely take it all in. But I'll really credit him and that new ownership group who's come in. They've been awesome. They've really supported us in this regime, and I really feel like we're going in the right direction here.
Yeah, a lot of investment for really all levels of the Las Vegas Raiders right now. Lots of reasons for excitement out there as we speak. Let's sort of move to some quick hitters. I say quick as in if you only want to give them one word, you can, but feel free to elaborate as much as you want. What do you think is the most difficult position to scout? I'm guessing the answer is quarterback because it's so important and the hit rate is low. But is there a different answer that might surprise our viewers, listeners?
Yeah, quarterback's definitely the most difficult and the most time consuming because it there's just so many checkpoints in the process, and it just takes an overwhelming amount of work to get there. Um, I would say specialist is tricky. That might be an off the wall answer for you. But to be honest, that process is very driven by the special teams coaches because it's so skill specific. Um, my most challenging, I'll put it, position to scout is safeties because you really have to dive into a lot of tape to get a amount of plays that are worth evaluation. Meaning plays where the guy's at the point of attack. Like, sure, you can watch a game and just see his movement skills, see his speed, his instincts, but to see him tackle, to see him play the ball, you really have to invest a lot of time to see that piece of it.
People don't care, but my answer has been inside linebacker just because it's so scheme specific, and what Bill Belichick might want could be very different from what Pete Carroll might want, and so on and so forth. You've probably visited. I don't even know how many schools. Do you have a favorite school to go on a school visit to?
I can't single anybody out because for a lot of reasons, but I'll say North Carolina because it's close to home.
Okay, that's a good answer. Is there a city that you enjoy visiting where a school is? Does that take you a little bit off the hook
Yeah,
here?
I can answer
Okay.
that.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Take Chapel Hill and Davidson out of it.
Okay.
I would say
Yep.
Boise, Idaho. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite places to go to, and you hit it at the right time of year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they say Boise is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Look at this. People here come for the football talk and they get a geographic and population update from yours truly here.
Yeah, we know the
Is
country. I mean, we go everywhere. I'll say that. We
Yeah,
drafted a
yeah.
player from Montana State and North Dakota
That's
State
right.
this year.
That's
So,
right. Yeah. What's like, is there like a longest drive you've had to make from one school to the next? Because I think people understand probably that, like, just because you're scouting two schools that are, one state apart, sometimes there's not a convenient flight path there. What's the longest drive you've taken?
yeah, Monty Ossenfort and James Lipford joke with me once a year. They send me the meme of like a dog with his tongue hanging out driving a car uh, because I asked one time to fly from Manhattan, as they tell the story, which isn't true, to fly from Manhattan, Kansas to like Louisiana or something. But I mean, to be honest, the longest drive is probably like 10 or 11 hours. That sometimes that's unavoidable. Um, some of those drives to West Texas back when I was the area scout. I've driven from Mobile to Dallas before, leaving the Senior Bowl when flights got
Yeah.
canceled and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it depends. Like the West Coast area, there's a lot of long drives because the schools are kind of so sparsely populated. Texas was nice because everything was pretty accessible. The Southeast is all pretty relative to that area and that pocket, but some of the West Coast drives are legit.
A lot of time for podcasts, like the Field Talk podcast, for any
That's
area
right.
scouts that have for the West out there listening right now.
Yeah,
Is there a
podcasts
favorite?
weren't that big when I was an area scout, so it was
Yeah,
calling your buddies on the phone or calling
yeah,
mom and checking in.
yeah. At least, yeah, the phone definitely helps occupy some time there. I'm sure, have been through many combine interviews. Is there a story from an interview or a question that was asked that had you laughing, or interaction with a player that you thought was memorable, whether you drafted the guy or not?
Yeah, I don't know if I would share some of that just because it's private. There's
Okay.
definitely been some times where you were turned off by the answers to the questions, like, oh, you get caught off guard. But this year was fun because we interviewed a lot of players that had high football character, high intelligence, high personal character. So it was really less of an interview and like investigation and more of a let's really get to know the person and form a relationship with them. And that was kind of a philosophy from SpyTech, which I really like and adopt. Sometimes you go into the formal interview at the combine, there's a lot of pressure, and like the kids really won't open up and get to know them because it's only 15 or 18 minutes. So we kind of took a different approach this year, and they weren't on the hot seat as much, and it was more kind of getting to know them, and that was really rewarding and really cool too.
Draft weekend's very long, especially that third day. You've got 4 rounds, you've got the undrafted free agent process. Is there a go-to food that gets you through that 3 day process?
There's not a lot of time to eat on the Saturday because we start early here, so we start at 9 a.m. Usually it's those like it's snacks, protein bars. It's the Gatorade Fast Twitch. That's my vice right now. Yeah, definitely a lot of caffeine, but it's a lot of built up energy to get to that point. But it's fun. I mean, this year I think we drafted like 5 or 6 players on day three,
Yeah.
and then we signed 15 undrafted free agents. So there's a natural kind of buzz that gets you through it. But it's the culmination of so much work by our scouts and by our executive team that it's a lot of fun.
I found a way to probably go through about 10,000 calories on our set on day 3 this year. So safe to say you and I are built differently. You're a much more efficient, dedicated human than I am to your physical wellness. As you think about your football journey, if you were to share like a lesson or lessons to people out there that their one day desire to be in your chair, or just enamored by the world of the NFL, what might be some of the most important ones that you've picked up along the way?
Yeah, be a great teammate. That's the number one thing. Um, the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated. Um, People above you and below you. Always treat everybody the right way and pour into relationships. It's a relationship. It's a people business. Um, Two would be attention to detail. Through my time in New England, I can't stress how important that was, and especially as a scouting assistant, when the task seems kind of trivial and maybe not that important, It really is. And anything you put your name on, it's important, and you need to do it at a high level. And then three, like, have fun and enjoy this along the way. And that's something I'm still telling myself on a daily basis. Coming up, I was so like focused on what was next. How can I get to area? How can I get to national? How can I get to this role? That I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wish I would have along the way when we were winning so much. Now I look back kind of nostalgic. Man, that was pretty cool. Like, we had a great group at that point. So that's what I would say. Enjoy it along the way and take the time to self-reflect and appreciate what we do on a daily basis.
Well, Brandon Yeargan of the Las Vegas Raiders, for now, the director of college scouting. It won't be long until you have an even bigger title somewhere in the NFL. We really appreciate you joining us here today and sharing a bit of your football journey. It's the very brief but important downtime of the NFL calendar. Enjoy it, and you're going to come back recharged, and good luck this upcoming season.
Yeah, thanks, Field. Appreciate you. Awesome.
For sure. A lot of great stuff and stories there from Brandon Yeargan of the Las Vegas Raiders, who's had quite a rise up to his position right now. Again, just 7 years working as a scouting assistant, then area scout, to eventually become the Raiders director of college scouting. A huge shout out to Roback for making this show possible. Again, a reminder, head on over to roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com to check out all of the incredible gear with the best fit and the best feel. If you enter my name, Field, F-I-E-L-D, you can get 20% off your first order. And also, another reminder, if you are watching us here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Always a big thank you to anybody that does that. If you're listening wherever you get your podcast, download, rate, review. It's all very helpful feedback for us. Until next time, we'll talk to you all again soon here on the Field Talk Podcast.